Welcome back to the Connected Advice podcast. I'm your host, Paul Redmond, and today we're diving into one of the most important and also most avoided conversations that business owners have with their families. And this is a very difficult conversation to have, but it's so important. Here's the real truth about it. When you break it all down, we have talked a lot over this podcast and the Accountants Club podcast, and we've talked about structures, frameworks, tax planning, goals, systems, everything that you could actually figure out in your head in terms of the whole accounting business platform. And some of you have put all of these into practice on a day-to-day basis. However, I'll ask you a question at the start of this. How many people have actually sat down with their families and went through the conversations? Have you made a will? We've talked about that. Have you made a will for your business? This is about structuring your business in the event of anything happened to you. How does your business continue? But here's the truth. A lot of you have them, but when it comes down to the conversation, people avoid the conversation. And why do they avoid it? Because they're afraid of conflict. And it's a very tough conversation to have. And I see people having the conversation when they become ill or sick or coming near end of life. They'll have this conversation and they're very open and honest about it at that point in time. Oh, but I have made a will and the documents will take care of her. My partner will take care of her. The kids will take care of her. But here's the big issue, and here's the thing that you really need to understand. Documents do not replace conversations. Because a document is only a tool for you to have the conversation to explain to people. I've seen families that the will was so watertight, as tax efficient as possible. The trust was built and the trust was just beautifully drafted. Tax planning was impeccable. Everything was gone. But when the founder or when the person passed away, this is where all the problem was, because no one sat down and explained my wishes in my instance to the people that are concerned, to my family and my team and my people and the people and all my friends and all the beneficiaries and all the people who are not receiving anything that may expect to receive it. That's really important. And if you're really honest and open about this and that you're willing to have that kind of a conversation, then what we're going to try and do here is trying to build out a little methodology for it. So what's the cost of silence? So the cost of the silence is, initially it can be a financial fallout to this. So if we don't have the thing structured properly, allowances are not used, assets get tied up because no one knows the truth. You can have, other people passing on and the previous will wasn't sorted and all this stuff. So the financial fallout is really can be really difficult, and it can be very expensive from a tax perspective and an advisor perspective, because they're trying to adapt to what's left and trying to help the family through and negotiate a family through a will that was designed impeccably maybe, or not designed at all in some instances, and they have to help negotiate that. And a lot of the cost and the wealth gets transferred out to people like ourselves and other advisors when it shouldn't be. The family plan didn't exist, so therefore no one can sit down and say, well, Michael or Joe or Mary, you were getting the house, but your mother or your parent or your father was supposed to live in that house until they passed away, and that's my wishes. And and that basic conversation is really important. And the problem is we don't want to face up to it, but the really important thing is you should face up to it. What kind of a blueprint should we put in place for this? So how do you actually, if you're going to have a family meeting, how do you run that family meeting, and what does the family meeting look like? How can you actually take that and face up to it? So I have 4 steps to do with this, to do with running a family meeting. And the first step is to frame the purpose of the meeting. It's not about dividing assets. It's not about connection. This isn't about money. It's about making sure that the alignment is there from the family perspective and that everyone understands everybody else's role, and we actually reduce any future stress, because you're going to face up to it at the very front of this. So the framing, the purpose of the meeting, what it's about, what your wishes are. Your wishes are to discuss what happens after you pass away, and your wishes are to sit down and say, well, here's this, and this. We're talking about all of these today, and we're going to lay them all out on the table. How do I know about this? Because I had to have that conversation myself a number of years ago, because I was diagnosed with cancer, and thank God and touch wood and all that, I'm out the other side of that. But that brings the conversation front and center. So you have to have the conversation. And just by having the conversation as you're going through that journey, it takes a lot of pressure off the journey as well. you need to choose the right timing, because I've seen this people deciding, yes, I'm going to have this family. I'm going to have this family meeting and I'm going to sit down and have it with everyone. And some of the timing is absolutely horrendous. They could have it at Thanksgiving in America. They can have it at Christmas Day at home, when everybody's emotive, everybody coming home and everybody coming together at a table. So it can't be used at somebody's birthday to have it, or that. It needs to be a separate event. It needs to be picked in a neutral space, and it needs really, and ideally, it needs to be chaired by someone like ourselves, or someone that you trust that can actually chair a meeting like this to stop the usual, issues arising. The next step in it is use a framework or a neutral tool. Like we have a thing called a family bridge, transfer bridge, the legacy lens. Have a methodology to go through this, because the conversation that you're going to have around all of this have been had thousands upon thousands of times by people. So there is a series of frequently asked questions that people will ask. So you can put a framework around it, and you can put a list of really important questions to ask at that family meeting. And you can set the family meeting up in such a way that if you really wanted to, you could send the questions out, or ask people to send in questions if they want to know some of the answers, if it's really done, if you're really open about it. But the framework will put a bit of structure around the meeting, and it'll also help to alleviate the emotional resistance that may arise, because emotional resistance will arise at this. No matter what you do in this instance, you're going to be potentially emotional, and the people that are around the table are going to be emotional. And all family squabbles can arise, and all of that thing will raise its head, or can raise its head at this particular point in time. So the framework shift the conversation from my personal opinion to a shared clarity around the table. That's the goal in this. The fourth part of the thing is facilitate, don't dictate. The goal is not to announce that this is exactly. The goal is to invite people and say, here's what we're thinking. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So that one shift can dynamically organise the meeting completely differently. So here's my thoughts on what I want to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your explanations. It's not an ultimatum. It's where I am. So you're going to have a series of family meetings, but the first one is to introduce the concept of a family meeting and having a discussion about this, because this is emotional. So you have the meeting, you have a discussion around this. And then when you do that, the next time is you're facilitating there, you're giving people a chance to talk. I think that's what people really want. They want a chance to air their opinion. And the other thing is they want a chance to be listened to. That's really, really important. That's the blueprint or the framework. So what's the practical tools? I suppose personally you're trying to look at the practical tools. And the first thing is what's the starter questions that you're going to look at? So you need to understand yourself. What kind of a legacy do you want as a family? So what is the family legacy looking like? What do you want? This is about your perspective and your will. So what do you want as your family legacy to be passed on? And the next question really, there's three questions in this. The first one is as I said, what do you want the legacy? The second is, what does fair look like? So if you're wanting to be fair and equitable, what does fair and equitable look like in your opinion? And how can you handle that fair and equitable split up of your assets or whatever it is? But the third one is most important. I think it's the most important question you're going to ask through all of this. What's the most important thing you're trying to protect? Are you trying to protect the estate, the money, or are you trying to protect the relationship? So when you understand that, okay, I'm trying to protect the relationship, but I want to be talking about the money. So it's family first. Again, we talk about that the whole time, family first. So that's the starter question. That's the practical tools. The next thing is a legacy letter. And a legacy letter isn't a legal document. It's a personal letter. It's about your voice, your hopes, your values, your dreams. And we use this legacy letter to reduce the conflict, if at all possible. And it's not about tax strategy. It's not about division. It's about your personal feelings. It can be a letter. It can be a video. It can be whatever format that you want to be. And the next practical thing I will say to you, start with something simple. Get an understanding that you're going to do this. Get an understanding that this is important to you and in your personal side of it. But it's the first conversation. You don't need to solve a all today. You don't need to go through everything. You start small. You have a conversation. You give people a chance to air their views in a way that's non-judgmental. You accept whatever they're saying, even if it does hurt you. You just accept it as is. Responsibility is not about fault, blame, right or wrong. And then make sure you set a date in your diary for the next one once you've adapted all the conversation that people have. Okay? So I'm going to go through some questions So the first question that I got asked about, why do most families avoid talking about wealth and succession? Because it's comfortable. It's uncomfortable, not comfortable. So you fear you're going to spoil your children, or you feel you're being judged or creating conflict. So it's better say nothing. And then you'll say, well, the children aren't ready, and the documents will take care of itself. I think we answered that a little bit further. Is having a will, a trust, or a tax plan enough? Again, we've answered that question. No, it's not. The documents speak for themselves. The documents are about planning and execution. This is about family. This is about putting your family first. It's the technical plan worked, the family plan didn't work because you didn't have the conversation. The next is, what's the real cost of silence? As again, summarize what we said earlier on, it's the emotional fallout, which is resentment, confusion, and mistrust, as well as the financial fallout, which is wasted structures, missed reliefs, no one understanding the rules. Silence just doesn't create problems later. It undermines the peace of mind now. Right? So people are wondering and worrying. How do you actually run a family meeting without turning it into conflict? Use the blueprint. Blueprint will work. Stick to the agenda and have somebody facilitate the meeting for you. Frame the purpose, pick the timing and setting carefully. Use the framework like the family bridge or the legacy lens. You facilitate, don't dictate. So that's the first meetings, really have really simple outcomes and really simple questions. And then for yourself, what questions can the family ask to get started? What kind of legacy? What does fair look like? What's the most important thing to protect, the family or the money? So just to finish up with this, my closing thoughts on that, the most powerful inheritance you can leave your family isn't money, it's clarity. I'm going to read that again. The most powerful inheritance you can leave your family is not money, it's clarity. So protect yourself, protect your family, and make sure that the silence doesn't cost in the long run after you're gone. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.